I wasn't anticipating them to. I wasn't anticipating a win yesterday. We talked about that last week. Talked about it yesterday on Green Bay Game Day. I thought it would at least be a little more competitive than it ended up being because that Packers offense, yeah, it was the worst performance of the season offensively. Yeah,
it was bad.
Right, they just
what we thought though.
Just
Philly,
could not move the ball.
Gabe, it's simple. It's simple. Philly's just better, and that's why we said what we did last week, and it kind of out that way. They said it on the broadcast twice, and it did. This game kind of felt like it was 75-0. You got to tip your hat to the defense.
I kept them in the game for so long. It just felt like you accidentally get one big play, Chew, and it felt like you could get back into it because the defense played so well, and it was just 10-0 for the longest time. For the longest time, it was 10-0.
I just never felt for the last handful of weeks that if they needed to throw the ball in order to win a game, they just aren't going to get it done, and that was the case yesterday. Jordan wasn't sharp. Was this the worst game he's ever played as a Packer? I know you mentioned in the meeting that you said
Vegas last year was worse. Vegas was worse,
which means absolutely nothing. That game. The lights were on and he didn't shine. He didn't see the field. LaFleur did not put him in a position to succeed. I saw they only ran, was it 3 play action passes, Gabe?
Yeah.
The only thing that was working was Josh Jacobs.
Mm-hmm.
And still, at the end of the day, Josh Jacobs, I think, had 81 yards and what you said, another 40 receiving.
Yep.
That's not good enough to get it done. We talked about Aaron Jones towards the end of last year and how important he was for their success. He was on fire. You can't win with a running game. I just don't think you can. I think you got to have the ability to run the ball, but in the end, man, when you have to, you got to sling it around, and he did not play well, and I don't know if these receivers are good enough because you got a bunch of 2/3s out there that did. And I don't want to hear injuries. I don't want to hear injuries, yeah. Because they were, for the most part, had been healthy all year long, okay? They lost their middle linebacker, and they lost their best corner, okay? We lost a lot, but that happens in games, and guys need to step up.
Yesterday was, as healthy as they were for most of the season, Chew, yesterday was rough.
Yeah.
Guys just kept going down.
Yeah, that was brutal.
And then for Josh Myers to go down when the game's essentially over, the game's already over, and Josh Myers, who's set to be a free agent, goes down. Now they're hopeful that it's not going to be a tough injury for him. They seemed a little bit more optimistic. But the first person on the Carblos Talking text line today isn't pointing the finger at Jordan Love or Matt LaFleur or Brian Gutekunst, and there is plenty of that. We'll get to that briefly. The first person, Chef Ed, is pointing the finger at you, Chewy, and at you, Joshy. Chef Ed is blaming you.
Yes, I know where he's going. And I was going to say, it's sad for me to say, Joshy, but should there be an RIP today?
What did I do?
If it ain't broke, don't fix it. Ever since they tried to change the Victory Monday song to Kid Rock, the wheels fell off the wagon.
Yep.
You guys,
I'll share the heat with you, Joshy, but ultimately I think it falls mostly on you.
It was your
but
idea.
I'll deflect a little bit.
It was your idea.
Yeah, but you played it without any prompting on Friday.
We have to be.
Josh?
Well, here's the thing, Josh. In Chewy's defense, you and I have to be Chewy's filter. You're the one who ultimately let it through after the Saints game. And so, I think that ultimately becomes your fault.
I tried to stop it.
Josh, it's kind of like. Yeah, so it's mostly your fault.
Now everybody's pointing fingers at each other.
It was like us missing curfew, Josh, and I didn't have a license, and you did, and I was just in the car. So I couldn't leave until you wanted to leave, even though you got me home late. I'll take some of the blame, but most of it's on you.
That was
Such
the
a good song, too.
First person. Well, it's dead. R.I.P., bud. You know, well, we'll have to try to figure out something else, maybe for Victory Monday next year. No, it's not going to be Kid Rock and 𝘃𝘃𝘃.
No, Gabe, this could be summed up very, very easily. Philly's a better team. And we said that.
Yeah, and
Philly's got more talent on their team than Green Bay does.
And that's where Cody texts in. Eagles have a great GM. We don't. Roster has a lot of holes. And I think that's, again, look, that. I don't know if I want to say Goody's not a great GM, right? I mean, at the end of the day, Chew, this is still a young and growing team. And the issue is, last year they were the youngest team to be in the postseason, and they won a playoff game. Played really well for 3 quarters against San Francisco before it fell apart, and they ultimately lose by 3. And then you feel good about that arrow pointing up heading into 2024. This year, they're the youngest team in the league again. Second youngest team ever to make the playoffs to last year's team.
I don't care.
And they played poorly
really
at the end of the season, so you don't feel as good. But what do you mean you don't care? That factors in.
I don't care. They choose to be young.
Yeah,
it's not like, oh, my God, we're so beat up, the only kids are available are rookies. They choose to be young. I don't know if it works. It clearly hasn't worked this year. So I'm not using that. You can't use when they choose to be the youngest team in the league.
Here's what
that's
I'm saying.
On them.
Here's what I'm saying, Chew. Like, it's a process. Like, I have to, like, you're not able to just turn this thing around, go to a brand new quarterback, and go to a Super Bowl in 2 years. Like, I don't think when Jordan Love took over, were any of us saying, yep,
he's in his 5th year.
2024.
He's not in his 2nd year. He's in his 5th year.
Okay, but whatever, Chew.
That's
like
young.
when he took over,
5th year
when he took over as the starting quarterback, were you saying, yeah, 2024 they're going to the Super Bowl? You weren't.
I said 25.
Yeah, exactly. Like that. So yes, they were the youngest.
But you know what they're going to be next year?
They're the youngest team this year.
You know what they're going to be next year? You know what they're going to be next year?
If they're the youngest team in the league next year, that's a mistake.
The youngest team in the league. Here you go.
That's going to be a mistake if that happens.
Way to go. Youngest team in the league. Great.
So they were the youngest team last year. Like, there's a process to build this thing up. Like, do I think that they're ever going to be the oldest team in the league? No. But they can't be the youngest again next year. And I don't think they will. They've got there's not a lot of roster spots. I believe they have 46 guys under contract as we sit here right now for 2025. You can only carry 53 on the roster.
Yeah. I've already pivoted on 25. I've already pivoted. Where I said, next year's definitely the year. I'm not saying that now. With losing Jair.
Jair really didn't play most of the year anyway.
Line needs some address. I'm just saying. You need a receiver. You need a number one.
Yep. I agree.
You need corner help.
You need some bodies there. They held up yesterday.
Need some bodies. So, yes, there are holes. I'm not saying they can't win the Super Bowl.
It kind of seems like you are.
Yep.
But I thought...
kind of seems like you are. You're tapping out. You said you were tapping out already.
That's not what I'm saying.
The season's not even 24 hours over, and you're sitting over there tapping out like Bret Hart's got you in the sharpshooter.
Well, let me ask you this. Based upon this season, did you ding them down a couple knocks going into next year?
I got to see what they do in the offseason, Chew, because there's obviously holes, right?
I'm saying right now. I can't wait.
I gotta see what they do because there's obviously holes, and if Brian Gutekunst is unable to or does not want to address some of those holes, then I'm not going to feel as good going in. But I feel great about that. At the end of the day, this team.
Win it. I'm not can't. They are closer, Gabe, to Washington and Tampa Bay than they are Detroit and Minnesota and Philadelphia.
Yeah, as we sit here right now, I think that's something that I agreed with all season long. Like you were the 7th seed for a reason.
I know.
You were the 7th seed for a reason because you couldn't you couldn't win those big games, right? Like they just couldn't step up. They could not win those big games absolutely when it mattered.
A few apologies on the talk and text line would be appreciated. Not a ton, maybe 1 or 2.
It's hard to keep up.
We gonna get them or no?
It's well, not today. I don't think. I think right now over on the Carplus talk and text line 800-990-3776. A lot of vitriol going on right now for Brian Gutekunst, Matt LaFleur, and Jordan Love. Not a lot of
What the hell do
optimism.
you expect?
Not a lot of. We got a text here on the Cardinals Talking text line. LaFleur and Love both stunk yesterday. This is a recording. What else we got here? So much for draft and development from Guy. Ben saying $250 million. What a joke. At least he won't hold out of camp next year. Yeah, a lot of hatred going on right now in that Cardinals Talking text line. Which, again, understandable.
What do you expect?
Understandable. Dump your bucket. Go for it. This is a judgment-free zone on Jen, Gabe, and 𝘃𝘃 today. Like, if you're probably going to say something you regret, and that's fine. Sometimes when you're upset, you're heated, you're going to say something you regret. I mean, maybe I'll push back a little bit. Like, you could be upset. Like, when Ben, $250 million, what a joke. At least you won't hold out of camp next year. That I'll let go. But if you're going to say, hey, we should trade Jordan Love, like, I'm just going to I'm going to gently push back there and saying, I understand you feel that way. Just understand the impossibility of that actually happening.
I'll shove back on
But with that. No, but with that.
Yes.
And I think fans at time have trouble with this. You got to hold players accountable.
Yeah. Look.
You got to hold them accountable.
Look, it's in my backpack, so I can't grab it right now. Before the pregame show yesterday, Chew, I did some research on how Love did against playoff teams, compared it against the other 6 quarterbacks in the NFC and how they did against playoff teams. Numbers weren't great. Like, at the end of the day, like, I don't think anybody's going to push back on Jordan Love has to be better. He has to play better next year. Like, there's no doubt about that. He just has to.
Is it fair to say he regressed this season? Because
Yes.
I said that and got some pushback. And the numbers because interceptions were similar year over year. Obviously, yardage is down for him, but he missed some games in there and had some injuries. But it didn't feel the same. And obviously, we have the 8-game stretch that was as good as anyone played in the NFL the past 2 seasons, basically. Yeah. But it didn't feel like he was as confident as he was in those 8 games at any point this season.
So, and again, this is not to say that he's going to be this guy. But the reason why I bring up this name, Chew, is because you played with him, you were tight with him, and he wasn't as good in his second season starting as he was in his first. And of course, that's Brett. Like, Brett comes on, that first year he's in Green Bay, he's 64% completion percentage, 18 touchdowns, 13 interceptions. The next year he leads the league in picks. Completion percentage goes down 3 or 4 points. He wasn't as good. And I know you've told the story. I don't know if this was the time. At some point in there was a discussion by the coaching staff of, do we replace him with Mark Brunell? Obviously they don't. Yeah. You guys go on and do everything you did with Brett. So the reason why I bring this up is because you played with him, you lived through it. What happened with Brett that he kind of took that half step back in 93, only to regain it, then go forward in 94, and then you guys are off and running in 95?
He stopped being as reckless with the ball that he was.
Okay.
He kind of toned down the gunslinging. The interceptions were clearly a problem then. And he learned from it. But what I want to see is, maybe one of you guys can do it during the break, and I don't want to hear year 2. He's in year 5. I want you to compare Brett's numbers in his 5th year and Aaron's number in his 5th year to.
Well, so Aaron's numbers in his 5th year are actually, Brett's are going to be different because Brett in year 5 had been starting for 4 years, so the numbers are going to be a lot higher. The numbers are eerily similar because I did see somebody do this to Aaron because they both sat for 3 years. And then when they started playing, the difference being, I guess the difference is at that point, Aaron was 1-1 in the postseason, or 0-1 in the postseason, and Jordan Love is 1-2.
And then what did Aaron do in his 6th year?
That's when they won the Super Bowl.
You can look that up.
That's when they won the Super Bowl. His 3rd year starting
after. Was he MVP?
MVP in year 7. He was MVP in 11. They won the Super Bowl in 2010.
But he was legit in his 6th year, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And I'm not saying Aaron's got to be – I'm not saying Jordan's got to be Aaron, but –
that's always the tough part is comparing Jordan to the 2 guys before him who are, in the Hall of Fame meeting, you just stand up and say their name, you sit down, and they get voted through. I do want to address this because it was a question here on the Cardinals Talking text line asking about this from Adam. Should that first drive hit that caused the turnover been a penalty, helmet to helmet? No. It's not college football. And Kezhawn Nixon was not defenseless. In the NFL, the player, in order for the helmet-to-helmet thing and for the targeting thing, that's a college rule. And maybe because we've all been watching the college football playoff, so the hit that caused the fumble should not have been a penalty. It's not a penalty in the NFL. If you want to have a discussion, go ahead, Chew.
And that should be a teaching point because that was an absolute perfect tackle. Head up.
His crown of his helmet. I don't know if you really want to be doing that to yourself.
Stop being a wuss. Stop being a wuss for crying out loud.
I'm saying for
what do you want, flags
yourself.
on these guys now?
I didn't
Is
say
that what you want, flags?
The one
That
question
is a perfect tackle. That's how tackling should be taught.
So that
Lower
was,
your hips,
and
head back, and accelerate through the tackle.
In college, that's probably a penalty. In professional football, it is not.
I'll say this: he'll certainly be getting a fine in his locker.
I don't know.
I think when you use your helmet, I mean that was crown of the helmet.
Yeah, but again, I don't know. In the NFL, they don't do targeting. That's not a thing.
Right, but
hit on defenseless receiver is.
Yes, correct. The defenseless is the big thing here. That is not.
And Kezhawn Nixon is not defenseless.
He was clearly a ball carrier.
Yes, he's a ball carrier. He couldn't have been more of a ball. The only thing from that play I will listen to,
is the fumble recovery.
I don't know how Kezhawn Nixon isn't ruled to have recovered that own fumble, but it is what it is. Apparently, he didn't have it long enough. I don't know what the rules are at the bottom of a pile. I guess at that point, once you recover it, hold on to it. I guess is the only thing I can say.